Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Phil Dixon with another edition of This Day in African American or Black Baseball History. And it's given for today. Of course, today is October 18th, 2025. And of course, we're going to go back and talk about some things that happened on October 18th through the ages. And in doing that, generally following my reading of what happened on that date, I give some commentary that comes from my 45 plus years of being an African American baseball historian of the first order. And that's someone who's really dedicated their life being out there. Of course, today is a day in America, if you're listening from a far away place, where there's protests all over the country and the No Kings protest. So it's a day that probably go down in history as one of a historic day. So just like many of the days I'm talking about here in the Negro Leagues, we'll be talking about this day, October 18th, 2025. So let's get ready to go to work, and we're going to jump right in here because I have lots of good stuff. So you want to hang in here as long as you can. I understand everybody's got different agendas for the day, but if you can stay in for a little bit, I guarantee you'll hear some things you won't hear anywhere else. So let me get a good drink because I'm getting ready to run here. All right. Okay, so let's go to the first one. October 18th, 1907, George Wilson, pitcher for the Montauk Club, and that's in Wisconsin, is presented a Silver Loving Cup for having the highest batting average on the team. He batted .338, leading his nearest teammate by 40 points. The article said that Wilson, and I didn't know this until I was doing the research on this. The article said pitches well with both hands. Now, he was a left-handed pitcher. That's what I always knew. And he said, and the only thing that keeps him out of the American and National League is his color, and that's a shame. This is the reason why people are out here protesting all the time, because of the inequalities that goes on in America historically and even today. So when I read these things here, going back well over 100 years, it lets you know that we must continue to bring recognition to these players and their achievements at the same time to try to make equality, make America live up to what it says it's going to live up to, which is equality. So anyway, yeah, George Wilson out of Palmyra, Michigan. I started doing research on George probably about 1981, 82. I've always been fascinated with George Wilson. The interesting thing is his career was cut short because he was hit in the head with a pitch ball and ended up in the mental hospital there in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where he passed away. Years ago, I used to talk to the guy who was the local, I guess he cut the grass in the cemetery, and he was also like the city's only paid official. And they were going to tear down George Wilson's house where his parents had lived, where he had lived. And so in doing that, I asked him to send me some wood from the house. And he did send that to me. And I still have that in my collection. I hope someday to make a frame of that wood and put a picture of a George Wilson inside that. So yeah, definitely know about George Wilson. I did feature him in my 1992 contribution to the Ted Williams Baseball Card Company. And so there's an image of George Wilson. If somebody has that, feel free to share that when you follow me and put some commentary on there, okay? So George Wilson, outstanding. Had a short career, guys, but this guy was probably, if not the greatest left-hander at that particular time, I don't know who would have been much better than George Wilson. But yeah, we don't talk about George. How often do I? It seems like I say that every night. We're not talking about these guys. And when I say talking about them, I'm talking about them being featured like the things that exposed me as a kid on baseball cards and things like that. Okay, so let's keep it rolling. October 18th, 1908, Walter Johnson, you probably heard of that guy, the big train, of the Washington Senators, pitching in an exhibition game for the Olive Grants, struck out 20 members of the Los Angeles Giants in an 11-inning game, but lost 6-5 when he surrendered 9 hits. Boggs, first name unknown, we don't know who this guy is, brought in the winning run in the 11th inning. And Johnson's catcher, now this guy was in the I think the National American League for a number of years. Name was Fred Buelow, B-U-E-L-O, Buelow, who was born in Germany in 1876 and who played his last game for the St. Louis Browns in 1907. Broke his left ankle when sliding into third base. There's several things you can point out in this one. First of all, Fred, born in Germany, he could play in the American National League, but black players born right here in America, been here for generations, couldn't. That's not equality, and it certainly wasn't fair, and it cost those men their livelihood. And so many of these guys who were playing outside the major leagues simply because of their skin complexion were barred for life. Where you could bring a guy in from Germany, he could play all day long, and he wasn't as good as some of the guys that are holding out. So anyway, that's the history. I can't change it, but I can tell you about it and tell you how I feel about it. All right, and then Walter Johnson, man, Walter Johnson, I've been talking all month long. He pitched a lot of exhibition games, and this guy would come and he'd strike out a lot of batters, but he didn't always win. That was the case when I was growing up. Nolan Ryan would come and strike a whole lot of batters out, but he didn't win. He struggled to win 20 games, but he had strikeouts like you wouldn't believe. And so Walter Johnson, when playing his team, that made me think about that. And so anyway, here we go. Walter Johnson, and let's see, playing out in California. So I just took it. And then also Boggs. There are many outstanding African-American baseball players. We simply don't know their first name. And if their last name is Brown, Jones, Williams, Smith, it becomes extremely difficult to identify who they were. So it takes a great scholar to keep digging. I know around in Kansas City, years ago when I first started in 1980s, there were a lot of guys who played. I even interviewed a guy who played in 1910 and played for the Kansas Giants, Palace Colts, and the Royal Americans. And so he was able to tell me the first names of some of these ball players. But since there's no one around now, and many people are really digging deeply into the history of African-American baseball history, those names, we may never find who these people are. Maybe their family will show up with a photograph or something, who knows. All right then, let's keep it going. We're gonna go to October 18th, 1909. Okay, Mordecai, Three Fingers Brown. Okay, he is defeated the Chicago Leland Giants by a 4-1 score to beat Walter Ball in an exhibition game in Chicago, played at Gunther Park. Now, that particular series, the Cubs played 3 games against the Chicago Leland Giants. Now, the Cubs played them intact. Now, only 2 guys were missing. Frank Chance, the manager, but he was there at the game sitting in the stand, in the bleachers. And I write about that. I don't think I have the book here. Here's the book right here. The best account you ever want to read about that is in this book here. And it's called Andrew Root Foster, Harvest on Freedom's Fields. And so anyway, I talk about that particular series. I go in depth, everything from the gambling to how it came about, why it didn't come about in other years, and why it never occurred after that. But they did play them. So two of their starters, Johnny Evers was missing, and he had went back home. I think his wife was expecting the child, and Frank Chance was sitting in the stands, and he just refused to play. And so now I did see some accounts that come up now saying that he had a bad shoulder or a broken bone in his shoulder. Believe me, when I went through the accounts at that particular time, all the newspapers, no one ever mentioned him having an injury, and that was not the reason he didn't play. So anyway, that game has one legendary feat that went down in history. The Lelands were being beaten 4-0, but a guy named Joe Green. Now there's more than one Joe Green. There's a Joe Green that plays for the Kansas City Monarchs and the Atlanta Black Crackers, the Cleveland Buckeyes in the late 30s and the 40s. But then there's another Joe Green. Now he's the latter guy who played later spelled his name Greene, where the other one just Green. So Joe Green was out of Chicago, great player. And Joe Green came in, and he was on third base. And Archer, the catcher for the Cubs, tried to pick him off, and he threw back, and his Green lunged back into the base. He broke his ankle, and so the ball went in the outfield. So this guy has a broken ankle. So he tries to hobble home with this broken ankle, and he's on one leg, hopping, trying to get home. And the amazing thing is the Cubs get the ball, the outfielder, they hit the relay man, and they throw him out at home. But man, people talked about the gallant effort of Joe Green for generations to score that one run. It went down in history. And so unfortunately, probably many of you never heard that before. But believe me, when I used to go to Chicago and the old pros were there, they used to have the old pros meeting. I used to go to some of their meetings. They held their meetings at a funeral home on the south side of Chicago. Guys, I can't make this up. I was there. And and so they would have their meetings at the funeral home, and I would talk to guys who actually knew Joe Green, and some of them who had actually seen this play. How about that? So anyway, that was Joe Green, and the Cubs. They're going to play a 3-game series, so I'll pick up the other 2 games up the days as they come, as they fall into the schedule. So that was October 18th, 1909. How about this? October 18th, 1914. In a game played at Lenox Oval in New York, the Lincoln Stars, playing behind the battery of Mike Brown and Bill Pettis, scored an 8-0 win over a team with 5 members of the Boston Braves in the lineup. And Stallings, the manager of the Boston Braves, a Southerner from Augusta, Georgia, refused to play against an African-American team. And then Brown, who was the Lincoln Stars. Now, keep in mind, there's a Lincoln Giants and there's a Lincoln Stars. So you got to make sure you know the difference here. So Brown played outfield. He played all fields, right, center, left, and pitched. And so he came in and pitched a 3-hitter. And you've got what I say, 5? You got 5 members of the Boston Braves. When we merged those statistics, and I was a part of that whole movement, guys, if you think that these players couldn't play with these guys in the American National League, you need to wake up and study baseball differently, and don't be brainwashed by the history that I was brainwashed with as a kid. I worked my whole life, my whole adult life, to bring equality to the history. And that's been quite a challenge. And even today, I face a lot of criticism when I talk about these games. Sometimes people don't want to hear it. They don't believe it. They don't want to believe me. But go look at the newspapers. Pick up some books. There's lots of books written on the Negro Leagues. Some of them pretty good. Some of them just the same cup of coffee warmed over. But you can get this information. And you want to know about some of these things? Hey, here's one book you can pick up. You can pick this book up here. And I have other ones too. So, all right then. Okay, let's go to another one. October 18th, 1931. Charlie Beverly, he's been talked about a lot here lately. Struck out 13 batters in the Kansas City Monarchs' 6-2 win over the Mexico Nationals at San Antonio's Lee Park after the end of the 1931 season, which wasn't one of the Monarchs' greatest seasons. I think the 2 bad seasons that the Monarchs had were in 1945, the war year, and then 1931. Those were probably their less spectacular teams. But of course, whenever Charlie Beverly pitched, they became more spectacular, right? So anyway, Charlie Beverly is going down there, and they go down to San Antonio, and then they're going to cross into Mexico, and they're going to continue playing for a few more games to end the 31 season. And they did pick up some ringers. Turkey Stearns went with them to Mexico, and you got Turkey Stearns. He's going to hit the ball, you know that. And then, of course, Charlie Beverly was always doing his best. One of the unsung heroes of the 1930s was Charlie Beverly. So I love talking about Charlie Beverly. And he was a good friend of Bullet Rogan. And later on, Bill Beverly, I think it was his nephew, was also played in the league. So, all right, let's go. Okay, now remember, since it's this time of year, you get a lot of baseball players who also play football. So here we go with a football one here. You ready? So October 18, 1935, Julius Bibbs, that's Rainy Bibbs for baseball fans, scored his team's only touchdown in an Indiana State Teachers College 33-7 loss to the Butler College Bulldogs in Indianapolis, Indiana. Bibbs sprinted 35 yards around end to score standing up. Now, Bibbs is today in the Indiana State Teachers College Hall of Fame. Years ago, when I first went to his house, I told this story a number of times, how I went to, I was looking for him in Terre Haute, and ended up finding that he had retired and lived in Indianapolis. Of course, when I got there, he was already deceased, but his wife, Dorothy, was still alive, and she helped me put a lot of this history together. And so today, he is a member of the Schools Hall of Fame, and he ended up being a great Kansas City Monarchs player. And his wife told me that one of his favorite guys on the Kansas City Monarchs was Newt Allen. He always talked about Newt Allen, and I hope to see Newt Allen again, which he never did get a chance to. But he taught for a number of years at Crispus Attucks High School there, and all-black high school there in Indianapolis. All right. And if I'm correct, Oscar Robinson, I got baseball on the brain there. Oscar Robinson of basketball fame went to Crispus Attucks. So somebody check that out. You know, you don't have to take my word for this. I'm going off the top of my head. I'm not reading anything. I'm just talking to you about things that I've learned over the years, okay? All right, let's go to another one. Let's go back to baseball. This is going to be my last baseball, and then I'll do one more little aspect of it, okay? Here we go. Yankees outfielder Reggie Jackson belted 3 home runs and collected 5 RBIs in an 8-4 triumph over the Los Angeles Dodgers to win the World Series. New York won the best of 7 the best of 7 series in 6 games. Of course, the best of 7 series. That's interesting because the World Series is, okay, I guess it is a 7-game World Series. Okay. All right. So anyway, yeah, Reggie Jackson. I remember that day. I was living in Colorado Springs and listening to the game on the radio, and just heard something fall here. But anyway, Reggie Jackson was just a premier slugger at that time, and those 3 home runs in the World Series equaled the mark set by Babe Ruth. It was a big deal. So, man, just love talking about that. And I lived through that history, and many of you who might be listening to this broadcast tonight also lived through that history. Yeah, so I did get a chance to meet Reggie, met Reggie on several occasions, and I knew his brother James even better. So, all right, so we're going to go to the last one. And the last one is actually when I go out, I usually do a coming or going. A coming is someone who's being born on this day. A going is someone who passed away. So we're going to do a coming tonight. Okay, and it says October 18, 1942, Detroit Tigers baseball great Willie Horton, number 23, is born in Arno, A-R-N-O, Virginia. And interesting about Willie Horton, I like statistics when I can find them that say something about the ball player. And he had 2 home runs in a game 30 times during his major league career, 1963 to 1980. I never got a chance to actually meet Willie Horton. I was in Detroit a couple years ago, and he was scheduled to come there with Jake Woods. And he actually was in the room, but then he got sick, and they had to take him out the room, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him. I did get a chance to get an autograph from Jake Woods. As he was leaving, I had to run outdoors, and I had a Jake Woods baseball card, and I had kept for years. And I got his autograph. So anyway, that does it for me today. We're about 18 minutes here, about 19. I can get out here at 20 minutes. I want to thank everybody for joining. If you like this kind of information, we don't fool around. We don't give you a bunch of fluff. We try to give you real history, something you can get your teeth into, right? And something that you can talk to other fans and sound really educated about when you talk to about baseball history. So anyway, that's what I do. If you like what I do, go ahead and hit that bell, hit subscribe, and follow us. Be sure to share the broadcast to someone else. I'm trying to get to 300 subscribers by the end of October, and we're on the 18th, man, so I got to pick it up. I think I had about 211 when I checked the other day. So, but I've only been at this 3 months. I know there's thousands of baseball fans who really enjoy this kind of information, and maybe they don't know I'm out here yet, but hopefully they'll find out. So today we covered baseball events from 1907 to 1977, and then we talked about the legendary Willie Horton, who's still with us. So thank you guys, and you have a nice day, and I will plan on seeing you tomorrow with more of this day in Black baseball history with commentary by sports author and historian Phil S. Dixon.